Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Hollywood's Hot Topics. This is Hollywood Joe from Hollywood's World of Sports coming to you today with a big episode that we're going to need to unpack. And today's episode focuses all about NASCAR. A lot of major announcements have been made over the last couple of weeks. I took some time to digest them all before I started talking about them. Because sometimes you got to think about things before you say them. I'm not one of those quick reaction guys. I'm not one of those guys who likes to talk about stuff right away because you may say something you might regret and not be able to take it back. So I am here today to talk to you about some stuff. And we're going to kick off right away with probably one of the bigger announcements that's taken place, and that is the 2021 schedule for NASCAR. I am personally stoked about this. I'm very excited for next year's NASCAR Cup Series schedule. They have added 3 road course races and have eliminated Kentucky and Chicagoland off of the schedule. They have also Michigan only has 1 race now, and Bristol. This is probably my funnest part of the whole thing. Is the spring Bristol race will now be a dirt track race. They will be covering Bristol and dirt for the spring. And so I like this idea. I don't know about you, but like the 1.5-mile, 2-mile tracks in NASCAR, they're boring to me. Like Michigan, Texas, California, Chicago, even Las Vegas at times. They're boring races. And so I'm glad that they're adding more road course races. I'm glad that Darlington is getting a race added on. I just think the fans want to see excitement, and to me there is no more excitement than a short track race, a road course race, and a super speedway race. And that's what I think. That's where NASCAR is headed. I think you're going to see a lot of these 1.5-mile to 2-mile tracks either be taken off the schedule in years to come, or they're going to be turned into road courses, because that's just the way of the future. I mean, even the Busch Clash, the first exhibition race of the year, it's going to be the Daytona road course. I mean, how exciting is that? Well, 1 week we get the road course, and the next week we get the super speedway, all during speed weeks. So I find that to be very interesting. And like I said, I'm personally excited for the schedule next year. I'm glad they're shaking things up. I'm glad that they have found new racetracks to go to. Nashville Super Speedway is on the schedule. Circuit of America is on the schedule, and Road Course America is on the schedule. And I've seen those racetracks watching Xfinity and trucks, and those races are a ton of fun to watch. So I'm excited for that. And Indianapolis now, they would not be running the traditional Brickyard 400, which this one kind of surprised me. But they will be running the Indianapolis Road Course, which the Xfinity Series did earlier this year. So that's pretty exciting in itself. And speaking of road courses, I tallied when I counted 6 road course races next year. And there's one guy I thought about when I saw how many road course races or on the Cup Series schedule, and that is A.J. Allmendinger. A.J. Allmendinger is a road course specialist. He does very, very well at road courses. He is usually one of like top 3 people you have to beat in order to win the race. And, I've been a big fan of AJ's for a long time. And, he obviously had some personal problems years ago, and he's overcome them and has gotten his life on track, which I think is great. But he's only been racing part-time in the Xfinity Series. And I talk about it on my social media quite often. A.J. Allmendinger deserves a full-time ride. I mean, he has raced, I think, in, I want to say 6 or 8 races this year, and his worst finish is 25th at Talladega, and it's only because it was at Talladega. He was running in the top 5 before he got crashed out. And then the other, outside of that Talladega finish, he hasn't finished worse than 15. He's been a top 10 driver all year, and if you think about it, because he's won a race, he won in Atlanta, and he's finished well in just about every other race he's been in. If he would have been a full-time Xfinity driver and competed for the Xfinity Series championship, he would very well be in the playoffs right now, based on that one win and based on the rest of his performances. And so I think Cup Series teams need to be looking at him heavily, because with 6 road course races next year on the schedule, A.J. Allmendinger could easily sneak himself into the round of 8 or even championship 4. I know people might think I'm insane, but you need to go look at his stats from, this season, because he has been nothing short of phenomenal this season. So I really do think that A.J. Allmendinger deserves a full-time ride, whether it be Xfinity, like Kaulig Racing. That's who he's been driving for part-time. They need to consider giving him a full-time contract. And honestly, one of these Cup teams, one of these mid to lower level Cup teams who could use an experienced driver, they need to consider getting A.J. Allmendinger a contract, because this guy, I think he's 38 years old, and some say that might be too old. Well, buddy, age is just a number. He definitely deserves a full-time chance. And so that segues me into my next, a little bit of news of drivers getting brand new chances. It was announced that Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin will be co-owners on a team next year, for the Cup Series, and their driver is Bubba Wallace. Now, I'm just gonna say it and get it over with. I don't want to hear about race baiting. I don't want to hear about stereotypes. I don't want to hear about nooses in garages. I don't want to hear about the Confederate flag. I don't want to hear about any of that garbage. Now, will I say, do I think Bubba deserves this huge opportunity based on performances? I would say no. Because Bubba hasn't exactly performed on the track, and his maturity level isn't the greatest. But I can understand Michael Jordan wanting to help better the sport. These people that are making it about race and color, honestly just need to get away from the sport. The fact that it's taken this long for a full-time African-American driver to be in the sport is ridiculous. It should have happened a long, long time ago, because there have been some incredible racers out there that never got a chance because NASCAR was stuck in its southern roots with moonshine and the Confederate flag and country music. Well, guess what, guys? Times are changing. The world is changing. Sometimes we may not like it. Sometimes we may not agree with it. But I will always maintain that everybody deserves an equal chance. Um, I think Bubba will do well. I think Bubba, this might be Bubba's best shot of having a successful career. Because obviously, Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan, they're both accustomed to winning. Obviously, they're going to get a ton of help from Toyota, and we know how good the Toyota cars are in NASCAR, because they, that's the thing, is Toyotas and Fords collaborate on their engines. They all work together to make sure they have the engines. I mean, look at Matt DiBenedetto. He drives for the Wood Brothers. But, those Penske engines, Robert Yates engines, whatever it may be, they're all going in the same car. So, Bubba's got an advantage working with Toyota next year. Now, speaking of collaborations, I find it very, very interesting and eye-opening that Rick Hendrick and Richard Childress have finally agreed to collaborate on engine making for the Chevrolets. And all I got to say about that is it's about time. Ford and Toyotas have been doing this for a while now, and that's why Fords and Toyotas have been successful. And I have a feeling that's why Stewart-Haas Racing got away from Chevrolet and moved to Ford to begin with, because of the collaboration effort. And now that Chevrolet, and now that the owners who have Chevy cars pulled their heads out of their rear ends, I think you're going to see Chevys start coming back to the forefront. Now, don't get me wrong, the Hendrick Motorsport drivers, Chase Elliott, William Byron, Alex Bowman, Jimmy Johnson when he was racing well, they've always had strong cars. But you can't say the same thing about Richard Childress. Richard Childress Racing is a very legendary team. And we'll just be honest, Dale Earnhardt Jr., not Jr., but Dale Earnhardt Sr. made it that way. And so, they have a lot to live up to. Austin Dillon has won a couple races. Tyler Reddick, I believe, is on the verge of winning races. And so I think with this collaboration between Hendrick and Childress, I think is going to benefit Chevrolet in ways that we haven't seen in a while. Because right now, Fords and Toyotas are ahead of Chevrolet. I hate to say that. I know people are there's probably Chevy fans out there that are going to be pissed off about me saying that, but it's the truth. Toyotas and Fords are ahead of the game right now. And so I really think that Chevrolet finally doing this is something that is long overdue and something that is needed to keep Chevrolets successful in the sport. And, speaking of successful and, things that are changing in NASCAR, I brought up Denny Hamlin earlier. Denny won the Talladega race this past weekend on Sunday, and there's a lot of controversy behind that race. Obviously, there's been the double yellow line rule in NASCAR for, I think, close to 20 years now. Been about 19, 20 years ever since Dale Earnhardt Sr. died. And the reason that rule was put in place is because, there was cars that dropped below the yellow lines at the end of the 2001 Daytona 500, and that's how Dale Earnhardt got killed, because that momentum coming back up the track and hitting the wall head on, got him killed. Denny Hamlin should not have won the race at Talladega. I get that he was forced below the yellow line. I get that. But he continued to advance his position under the yellow line. Okay? The rules state that you are not allowed to advance your position under any circumstances. So, not only did Matt DiBenedetto, Chase Elliott, and a handful of others get screwed out of a win, Matt DiBenedetto also got penalized because they said he forced somebody down the yellow line, which I don't know what race people were watching yesterday, but in my opinion, Denny Hamlin and Chase Elliott benefited from NASCAR's favoritism. And NASCAR has favoritism. I don't care what you say about it, what you think about it, what you claim to know about it, but NASCAR did not enforce the double yellow line rule equally on Sunday. And to me, here's the thing. If you're not gonna enforce it equally, then get rid of the rule. The rule is stupid anyways. I get everybody was paranoid and worried and upset after Dale Earnhardt Sr. died. I get that. It was a great loss for the sport. He'd probably still be alive today had that not happened. But here's the thing. When you have his son, Dale Jr., on national TV saying that they need to get rid of the rule, that's probably a good indicator that they need to get rid of the rule. Because Dale Jr. has a major influence and a big voice in terms of what goes on in NASCAR. People care about what he thinks. People care about what he believes. And so I think the yellow line rule at Daytona and Talladega need to be abolished. The safety equipment is 1,000 times better than it was 20 years ago. You see drivers walking away from some of the most violent crashes you've ever seen, with the exception of Ryan Newman. Ryan Newman was the only one to not walk away from a violent crash. He was out injured pretty badly and almost, he almost could have died. But outside of Ryan Newman, I've only seen maybe one or two violent wrecks in NASCAR in the last 20 years that have injured somebody for a lengthy period of time. And, I'm not saying we need to go out and start driving recklessly, but when you're trying to win a race to keep your job, you should be allowed to do what you need to do in order to win that race. Because here's the thing. Denny Hamlin's locked into the playoffs. He's into the round of 8. He's probably going to be into the round championship 4. Matt DiBenedetto is racing for a job. Matt DiBenedetto's future is very uncertain right now. Yes, he has a good relationship with the Wood brothers. He's done a wonderful job in the Wood brothers 21 this year. But, Matty D, we don't know what's going to happen with him. If he does not have a job next year, I'm going to look back on that Talladega race. And that's going to be a moment where I basically say that NASCAR and Denny Hamlin screwed Matt DiBenedetto out of a job in NASCAR. This kid has raced his butt off and puts in 1,000% effort week in and week out. As far as I'm concerned, here's the thing. Since Denny Hamlin has basically screwed over Matt DiBenedetto twice now in the last 2 years, maybe Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan should consider adding a second car to their team and giving Matt DiBenedetto a job. Because, think about it. Denny Hamlin even said last year at the Bristol race when he beat out Matt DiBenedetto and kind of raced him a little dirty at the end. He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry for Matty D. I wish I didn't have to pass him. I wish he could have won the race." Come on, Denny. Denny, are you really that sorry? Let's get a grip here. If you were really that sorry, you wouldn't have continued to advance your position yesterday when you weren't supposed to, and Matt DiBenedetto would have run the race. He would have won the race. And the other thing is, as they penalized Chase Elliott, but then rescinded it later. So Chase got no punishment. And to me, that's clear favoritism. I don't care what anybody says. This is what it is. And, there's been a lot on my mind as it relates to Denny Hamlin. And I should have talked about this in my previous segment, but I didn't. I think it's a conflict of interest that Denny Hamlin is now going to be a team owner and will be racing for a different team. I think, to me, once you become a team owner, you need to open up a spot on the team that you're on and race for your own team. That's just my opinion. I know people will say, well, Dale Earnhardt Sr. raced for Richard Childress and formed DEI. I get it. I get Dale Earnhardt Sr. was trying to build for the future. But, again, times are changing. Kurt Busch owns his truck series team. He races for his own team in truck series. Stewart-Haas Racing, after Tony Stewart left Joe Gibbs, he drove for his own team. And to me, Denny Hamlin should be leaving the number 11 car and getting into a car owned by him and Michael Jordan. That's the way I see it. Some people will probably think I'm overreacting or insane, but I think it's a conflict of interest. I really do. It's just my opinion. People can say what they want to about Michael Jordan. I read some of the most absurd things online sometimes. People saying, well, Michael Jordan's a crappy basketball owner and he's a loser when it comes to being an NBA owner, and he's going to do the same thing in NASCAR and all this other stuff. Loser and Michael Jordan don't belong in the same sentence, okay? The fact that people are saying that is mind-boggling to me. Here's what people gotta understand. The NBA has a salary cap, and once you go over the salary cap, you pay luxury tax, and luxury tax is pretty expensive. You ask the New York Yankees, because they do it all the time in baseball, and they wind up paying absurd amount of money because of all the big contracts they have on their team. And let's face it, the Charlotte Hornets are a small market team, okay? They're not a big market. They're not New York. They're not Brooklyn. They're not Los Angeles. They're a small market team. And so when you have a small market team, there's only so much salary cap you're going to get. There's only so much revenue you're going to get. And to top it all off, Michael Jordan cannot use his influence in terms of sponsors and stuff like that to lure players into playing for him. So he is in a very, very tough position as an NBA owner. While at NASCAR, there is no salary cap. Okay? Michael Jordan is not limited to not being able to use his influence for sponsorships and stuff like that. So Michael Jordan's probably going to pour a ton of resources into this project. And it goes back to what I said earlier. Do I think Bubba Wallace, from a performance standpoint, is necessarily deserving of this opportunity? No, I don't. He shows signs of greatness at the restrictor plate races, and that's about it. However, I do not blame Michael Jordan for doing what he is doing, okay? Michael Jordan's actions have always spoken louder than his words. That's the way it is. That's the way it has been. That is the way it's always going to be. So, it's going to be an interesting 2021 for NASCAR. I'm excited for it. I know, talking to some fans, they're excited for it, especially about the schedule. Like I said, the sport is changing, and people need to accept change. Sometimes we don't like it. Sometimes we don't understand it. Sometimes it's a turnoff. But NASCAR is changing. I can't say whether it's going to be for the good or for the bad, because we haven't seen the full effect and impact of the changes yet. But I'm looking forward to 2021. I can sit here all day and tell you 1,000 times over until I'm blue in the face that I'm looking forward to the 2021 NASCAR Cup Series season. So I'm not going to do that, though. I've kind of laid out everything I wanted to talk about on this edition of Hollywood's Hot Topics. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on what's going on in NASCAR right now, and the future of NASCAR as a sport. I'm always open to hearing what people's thoughts are, as long as they're constructive and logical and that they make sense. I don't do well with people who just talk trash to talk trash and have nothing productive to bring to the conversation. That's how I've always been. It's how I'm always going to be. So if you have something productive and constructive to bring to the conversation about NASCAR or any other sports topic I cover on Hollywood's World of Sports, I would love to hear what you have to say. So with that, I'm wrapping up. My name is Hollywood Joe from Hollywood's World of Sports. This has been another edition of Hollywood's Hot Topics. Be sure to check me out on hollywoodsworldofsports.com. Check me out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Reddit, you name it, I'm on it. And remember, as always, controversy doesn't come without criticism.